Hello, this is Mike Cook. I'm here in my garage gym and welcome to episode 17 of Anti-Doping Updates. Today we've got the stories of two rugby players, both of whom were sanctioned for 4 years, but for very different reasons. Okay, let's get started. The first story is Ralph Rainbow. He is an amateur rugby player with the Rugby Football Union in England, which is the governing body for rugby union in England. And in July of 2018, the UK Border Force seized a package that was addressed to him because it contained paraphernalia for injecting human growth hormones, and it was labeled anabolics.org. The UK Border Force turned the package over to UK Anti-Doping and found that it contained 20 clear bottles of a clear liquid labeled anabolics.org. UK Anti-Doping tested it, and it tested negative for any kind of human growth hormone. And UK Anti-Doping interviewed Ralph Rainbow. He admitted that he was trying to purchase human growth hormone and to use it for sports performance to help him be a better rugby player. UK Anti-Doping charged him with the anti-doping violations of possession and attempted use. Ralph Rainbow did not contest the charges, and so UK Anti-Doping referred the matter to Sport Resolutions for determining the appropriate sanction. They determined that the charge of possession was made out because he had, even though he didn't come into possession of it, he had ordered it to be delivered to his address that he had control over. And they also found that the charge of attempted use had been made out because he admitted that he intended to buy human growth hormone and intended to inject it because it had the syringes and the clear liquid. And therefore they found that this was an intentional violation and subject to a 4-year sanction. So that's how he got a 4-year sanction. Okay, second story to talk about is Lorenzo Thomas. He is an American rugby player who was selected to represent the United States at the 2019 Pan Am Games. At the training camp in July, just prior to the Pan Am Games, he was selected for testing at 7 a.m. And at that time, he produced a partial urine sample and wasn't able to produce enough urine to constitute a valid sample. So he went to go eat breakfast with the USADA chaperone following him the whole time. And then after breakfast at about 8:45, completed the urine sample for testing. That sample tested positive for Endurobol. Endurobol is a prohibited substance. It was developed in the 1990s, went into clinical development as a candidate for metabolic and cardiovascular disease, but was abandoned because it causes rapid cancer in the laboratory rats that it was tested on. So it's a prohibited substance because performance enhancing and has a danger of causing cancer. So at any rate, once he got to the Pan Am Games, he was notified that his sample tested positive for Endurobol. He accepted the provisional sanction and did not compete in the Pan Am Games. The USADA charged him with presence of a prohibited substance, and he requested a hearing and an arbitration regarding that. And he had two defenses. First, he argued that the sample collection process wasn't followed correctly, and therefore the whole sample shouldn't be a valid sample and shouldn't have an anti-doping rule violation. Second, he argued that it was non-intentional violation because it was a contaminated supplement, and therefore he should have a reduced sanction based on no fault or negligence or no significant fault. So regarding the first allegation, Specifically, he argued that the USADA doping control officer didn't show him his credentials, didn't allow him to read the collection procedures that were on the iPad, and didn't follow him all the time during the period between the first and the second portion of the sample collection. USADA argued that number one, they argued that they followed the sample collection procedures. Number two, he would have to show that the international standards for testing and investigations was violated, and that violation led to the positive test. And the arbitrator agreed with USADA that Lorenzo Thomas had not made that connection between, number one, he hadn't even showed a violation of the ISTI, and number two, no connection between a purported violation of the ISTI and the positive test. So the next issue to turn to was whether or not this is an intentional violation and whether or not there could be a reduction in sanction based on a defense of a tainted supplement. So Lorenzo Thomas had claimed that he had taken a supplement from Muscle Tech called NeuroCore, and he sent a number of samples of NeuroCore, number of packages of NeuroCore to a WADA accredited lab for testing, and none of those samples tested positive for Endurobol. Nevertheless, he argued that was the source of his positive test, and therefore he should be found to have no fault or negligence, or no significant fault or negligence, and therefore a reduced sanction. USADA argued that in order for that to apply, he would have to show that his claim of tainted supplement was actually in fact, and they argued that no, he hadn't shown that because he'd sent his supplements to a WADA accredited lab for testing, and there was no Endurobol in them. And so the arbitrator agreed with the USADA and found that Lorenzo Thomas had not made out his claim of tainted supplement, and therefore it was an intentional violation, and he's subject to a 4-year ban. So we end up with both rugby players getting 4-year bans, one for attempting to purchase HGH and for 200 pounds, and the other for testing positive for Endurobol and his failed claim of tainted supplements. Let me know in the comments what you think about the whole scheme of tainted supplements, and whether you think this is a good way of adjudicating these cases, that it's on the athlete to show that their supplement actually is the result of their positive test. Thanks, and I'll have another episode next week.